Hey guys, it's Barry here with the Buffet Podcast, and I'm out here today at the Evergreen Cemetery. So the Evergreen Cemetery is a historically black cemetery here in Richmond. I've actually come out here today to volunteer and to see the progress that they have made over the last few years, because they have been taken over by a new nonprofit. The original caretakers neglected the property severely, so now everyone is trying to clean it up and restore it to its natural glory. On a personal note, I have family that is actually buried over here at Evergreen Cemetery, so it is really important to me to get over here and volunteer every once in a while, or as frequently as I can, to make sure that their graves are clear and we are able to see them and visit. And the current caretaker will be explaining the progress that has been made here today as well. So I'm happy to have him on and let him give some of the historical history and significance of why this cemetery should be important to everyone here in Richmond and across the country, essentially. And I also will be giving you information on how to get involved and how you can help restore the cemetery to its natural glory. And one of the easiest ways you can get involved is by sharing this video that helps raise awareness about Evergreen Cemetery, and clicking the link to enrichment.org to get more information on how you can donate your time or your money. All right, Aaron, explain where we are right now.
So we're at Evergreen Cemetery, founded in 1891, and currently in the midst of the cleanup process here, being spearheaded with AmeriCorps and the caretaker here, Ted Mariswolf. Now we're getting a little walking tour. Beautiful, I guess, March day now. It's now March. So kind of going over some stuff, some pieces of history, talking about a very large tree.
It's a large tree.
Yeah, a large oak tree. It's actually a willow oak that was here definitely in the 1930s. Old aerial photos, and it was in a field by itself.
A field by itself. A field by itself. Look at this. So over the last, what, 100 years?
100 years. It's
and it's been this cemetery has been pretty neglected.
Yeah, I think back in the 60s is about when it stopped. Stopped being taken care of. So.
And this is a historically black cemetery.
Yep.
Look at that tree thing.
So this very, I would say back in that time, luxurious plots.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Which have since been neglected, but they're trying to bring it back to life. This right here is an impressive grave. W.H. Walton. It's definitely a family plot. They have granite here. Wow. And, you know, this is what the caretaker is supposed to do. They're supposed to take care of things like this. The family, I'm sure, when they were alive, took care of the plot, but for years to come, that's what the property managers and caretakers are supposed to do. So this has been recently cleared. And as you can see, there are more miscellaneous trees in this plot, and hopefully we will get this cleared out even more. Let's take a look at some of the devastation that we have here from the neglect from previous caretakers. And we know that when we pay for our plots, that we're hoping that someone is around to take care of them. And this is a historically black cemetery in the city of Richmond. There are very notable people in black history buried over here as well. We have Maggie Walker, A.D. Price, Mr. Mitchell, who started the Richmond Daily Planet, over here in this cemetery. Right here is Maggie L. Walker's bridge. Maggie L. Walker was the first woman to own a bank in the city of Richmond, probably in America. So this is what they aspire every grave to look like, especially those who have plots like Maggie Walker. Maggie Walker has a family plot. Everyone is over here, her mother, friends, children, and this is what they aspire. This is what the volunteers are working towards. They're working towards to have every grave look like this. And the way you can do that is by volunteering. I've been out here a couple of times. I have family that's over here in the cemetery. It's really disheartening to see how much neglect has went on in this particular cemetery for such significance that lives here forever. So here we have Ted Maris Wolf to tell us more about another historical figure over here in the Evergreen Cemetery.
Yeah, so historic Evergreen Cemetery is the home of thousands of Richmonders, and many of those buried up here in the historic terrace were born in slavery and died in freedom. And they were among those who were born just before the Civil War. They witnessed the passage of the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments, the optimism and hope of that moment of federal Reconstruction. And one of those individuals was John Mitchell Jr. He was born enslaved at a plantation called Laburnum, not far from here. And Mr. Mitchell was a self-made individual and one who benefited from the first African-American institutions in the city after the Civil War. So he succeeded in school, he became an educator himself, he was quite an artist, he was an editor, and he joined the Richmond Daily Planet, where he was the editor-in-chief for 3 decades. John Mitchell Jr. really is one of the great civil rights leaders in American history. If you think about the generations that came before the modern civil rights generation in the mid-20th century, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and others, John Mitchell Jr. is certainly one of those individuals who set the stage for the modern civil rights movement. Mr. Mitchell was famous for taking on injustice wherever he saw it. And if there was a lynching that was rumored to occur, Mr. Mitchell could be found at the site, at the location, armed for self-defense, challenging those who would challenge the law with mob violence. He took on directly the Virginia politicians. He reminded Americans of their promise after the Civil War to end slavery and to create a legal system that treated everyone equally, and to believe in the vote and the power of democracy. And so Mr. Mitchell rests behind me, and his mother has a large grave marker next to his. Right here, one of the highest points in Evergreen. And when one visits Evergreen, it's a kind of open-air museum of American history, where remarkable African-American civil rights and justice and institution building and contributions to civic life in America. And the last thing I'll say about Mr. Mitchell, like Maggie Lena Walker and so many others buried here, they were leaders in fraternal organizations, mutual aid societies, and institutions created by African Americans for African Americans to provide life insurance, funeral insurance, education, classes, inspiration for the city's African American youth. They created institutions within a city that didn't offer them these opportunities, so they created them themselves. Incredibly inspiring people that remind us to think big and always reach for the stars.
So there are many ways you can help and volunteer. You can go visit enrichment.org, and we can have all the graves look like this with your help. Not necessarily your money, but you being here. This is how these graves are kept. Right. Special thank you to Ted Maris Wolf. He's the new and current caretaker who has done a tremendous job out here. But there's plenty of more work that you can do as well. We're encouraging small businesses, black-owned businesses to come out, uncover a grave or 2 or 3, sponsor a grave or make sure that they stay intact. Your Boy Scouts, any nonprofits that want to come out and sponsor a grave, you are definitely needed. Small businesses in general, we're calling you out as well. You need to be out here too, helping preserve the history of Richmond. So help preserve history. Make sure you keep listening to me, Barry Farmer from the Buffet Podcast, on your iTunes and on YouTube as well. And I will talk to you later. And remember to adjust and carry on.